doing all things post-session fueling, I'd say every topic that we bring up is important, but I think in terms of like feeling good on a day-to-day basis, what you eat after your training really does have the largest impact consistently over time in feeling better. I was just talking to an athlete this morning, and she was saying how amazing the change is in her post-session fueling, and when she's really consistent with that, how much better she feels. And she said, I didn't realize until I was feeling good and sleeping well, that's the other component, how much of a difference it makes. So I think the, key takeaway from anything is make sure you're refueling with something. And hopefully we're going to dive into some very specific examples, but also how you help you figure out how you can do it on your own. All right. You know the crew. Today you're just with me. All right. Meal timing and quantity, why you need both, why both of those things matter. Why it's important to have protein in refueling, and why you need carbohydrates, why you need fat, and kind of how those all work together. So when you're looking at meal timing and total macro intake, Scott created this like a tale of two important stories. And they really are, it really does matter. It's not, I know you've heard me say like, just eat something. And I do mean that, like eat something, but it also matters what you're having in there. And we'll really dive into it in terms of protein and carbohydrates and how soon after you need to. Is there such a thing as like that, magic 30-minute window or 20-minute window, or should you be drinking it while you're finishing your last set at the gym or in the shower like some athletes do? Yes, timing is important. Yes, macro intake is important. Overarching those, though, is the fact that you are refueling properly with enough and of the right things. So as you guys have, really dove into utilizing the app, I just want to remind you and show you this is part of what the app does. We are laying out and showing you very clearly what it is that you want and how much to have. And I realize that sometimes the timing of workouts gets shifted, or the type of workout might, or what you have for your snack in the morning changes slightly, or at lunch because you forgot something. But the idea here is to show you, look, in this particular case, this athlete has a big bike ride. So you want a snack before starting this bike ride that is higher in carbohydrates. Ideally, it's at that 70 to 100 grams of carbohydrate mark. You're going to be refueling. Then you've got a lunch afterwards. You have a swim that we want you to fuel during. It's really reminding you that there are those three before, during, and after, and you want to nail those. And the app breaks that down so that you can, just as a reminder to kind of like their hydration reminders in there throughout the day. Yep, we want you to have something before, because that's only going to help you during, and that's only going to help you after. Yes, we want you to have something after because we know you have a session later in the day, or because we know you went into this training session fasted, or it was particularly difficult. And I think this is another one. The overarching goal when looking at your post-session nutrition is to help your body recover. It's to replenish glycogen stores. It's to reduce cortisol levels. It's to promote muscle repair and recovery. It's to rehydrate you, and it's to prepare you for the session and or day that you have ahead coming up. As there, the traffic light system, I think, is old news to you guys now. You've done it enough, but just a reminder, different sessions have different outcomes, have different carbohydrate requirements behind them. And if you are taking away, looking at the app and not needing or wanting to get bogged down in the minute details. It's like, it's red, 30-ish grams, it's yellow, 50-ish grams, it's green, 100-ish grams. To myself, I'm just like, okay, I know that's either, you know, after a swim or something, one toaster waffle, or it is a big bowl of oatmeal for the moderate, or it is a, you know, my at-home protein pancake, a big stack of my protein pancakes with some sliced bananas on the top and blueberries and potentially a drizzle of maple syrup if it's at that green one. So it's like, I know I've picked out, especially in the morning, because that's when I'm rushed. Based on those colors, I know what I'm going to have carbohydrate wise, and then I can look and balance the proteins and fats. All right, so why is protein particularly important? I think we talk about it all the time. You know, a lot of athletes will say like, oh, they're the carbohydrate people. We're also the protein people. And it's something that, especially at some of the breakfast meals, I think, and lunch, it's easy for athletes maybe not to get as much as they need unless they're really being mindful. So I want to make sure that we highlight why it is important. Protein optimizes the skeletal muscle adaptive response. Sciencey term for this is how your muscles repair, replenish, recover, rebuild. So protein is a very essential, important part of that. Of the amino acids, leucine specifically is the most beneficial, especially for pre and perimenopausal women, which is why in the app, you'll see a lot of the time we have that whey protein shake in there, or plant-based protein with leucine added. It's shown to be the most beneficial. So that's why I want to make sure that we have it in there. Protein is important during that immediate recovery window. So 0 to 5 hours is what we call the immediate recovery window. And it's important in the prolonged window. So 5 hours to 72 hour. And that's where you want that 1.6 to 1.2 grams per kilogram per day. What I'm highlighting here is the fact that it's not just where protein is concerned. Yes, you want to get some in that meal afterwards. Yes, Scott and I say the general recommendation is 25 to 30 grams to be safe. But it also matters that you're getting enough protein throughout the day and that you're getting enough protein consistently, because that's how your body is going to best recover. All right, how to hit those daily proteins. We're asked this all the time. Red meat counts, whey or plant-based protein powders count, legumes, fish, poultry, there are grains like quinoa, amaranth, buckwheat. It's not just, I think it's very easy for people to like meat, and hopefully a lot of you guys know this by now, but getting a variety of these different sources, including them in your meals, looking at, utilizing the protein shake once, maybe twice a day, depending on how high your protein requirements are, and building a plate with protein. For my plant-based athletes specifically, a lot of times they'll say, how am I going to get in 120 grams? And it's like, okay, let's use breakfast, for example. Let's do the Ezekiel bread as your, get a slice of toast there that has maybe 6 grams of protein in it. We utilize maybe some scrambled tofu, throw in a couple, some veggies in there, some hemp seeds on top. You use a soy milk or an almond milk or a flax milk that has a little bit of protein in it, and building that plate of protein, you'll get to that 25 to 30 grams. At lunch, it's like utilizing something like quinoa with some edamame in there. At dinner, it's grabbing maybe a lentil pasta or one of the garbanzo or chickpea pastas for the plant-based athletes, or for the meat-based athletes as well. So I think rounding out your daily protein throughout the day, but also really hitting that 30-ish grams in that post-exercise meal. Why are carbohydrates important? A reminder, time to recover versus rapid restoration. what types and how much of the carbohydrates that you're consuming, that's what you need to consider, which luckily the app takes that into account for you. If it's rapid restoration, so less than 4 hours, say you have, you're going to, you swam in the morning and then you're going to go do a strength session and then get home for breakfast. Or if you're doing a strength session in the morning and you're going to try to do a run at lunch on your break. That's where you want to look to have those higher glycemic index, easily absorbable carbohydrates. Consider adding in some caffeine, potentially limiting the fiber on those because you are going to have to be going out sooner rather than later. Versus if you actually have time to recover, so if that's maybe a 6 or an 8-hour window or even a 24-hour window, you get more slow digesting, fiber-rich carbohydrates, so such as your grains, like the starchy foods, vegetables. Forget that vegetables have some carbohydrates in there, oats, things like that, that are potentially slower to digest, potentially more filling, versus something like, white bread or honey or maple syrup or easily digestible fruit, bananas, whatnot. So time to recover versus rapid restoration. You need to take both of those into account. We have and do know now that a carb and protein co-ingestion is better than just carbohydrates alone. So, which is why we, on the app, when we're talking to you, we always say like it's carbs and protein after your training session. It helps with muscle glycogen resynthesis. It helps with muscle repair. It helps with reaction time, with brain function. So yes, if, it's easy to grab a banana, but if you're, coming from the pool, have a protein shake as well. So you can have both the carbohydrates or make your protein shake with a higher carb, like an oat milk or something like that. The other important component that I think is forgotten with carbohydrates is the fact that it helps with brain function. A lot of times after workouts, especially something like swimming, athletes will tell us all the time, I'm physically exhausted, but I'm also mentally exhausted. Carbohydrates help with brain power. That's why when we have a horrible night of sleep, that first thing that we crave are those easily digestible carbohydrates to help give our body and our brains energy. If you are training in the mornings, like most of you are, and then going into work, you want brain function during the day. You want to be alert and on top of things. If you're doing a second session, especially if it's a strength training session, you need to be able to mentally focus and push yourself and have that motivation to train again. Carbohydrates are important for that. All right, why is fat important? We don't want to leave out fat because it absolutely is. We don't stress it because the protein and the carbohydrates are most important, and fat Scott and I will say, like, takes care of itself as long as you're meeting your protein and carbohydrate requirements. So fats help with the transportation of oxygen throughout the body. Fats help enhance immune function, which is very important after hard training. We don't want you to get sick. Immune function is decreased. That's why you have the carbs and protein, but fat is important as well. Fats also help with satiety, vitamin and mineral absorption. Obviously, fat-soluble vitamins need some fat in there. And it helps with endocrine function. So your hormonal system, keeping your cycles regular, keeping testosterone production up. It's not, which when we are looking at some of these examples, post-fueling or post-session fueling examples, there are healthy fats in all of them and all that I recommend. But when you're building that, it's, sardines, for example, one of Scott's favorite breakfast foods. There are omega-3s in there that are part of the fish. So you're not necessarily having to look to add the fat in there. It's an excellent food, same with eggs. All that nutrition kind of built in there because Mother Nature knows our bodies work well when we have all of those macronutrients together. One component, though, when I am specifically, and we're learning more every day, with fat specifically, omega-3s are kind of the exception that you may want to add post-training, because we're finding that they're crucial, beneficial for muscle recovery, and that taking omega-3s after can help reduce muscle soreness, improve neuromuscular function, and help with explosive power, help with muscle fatigue, help with reaction time. So it's something to consider. I know Scott does it. I know when I'm in heavy training blocks, when I take my daily omega-3s, I take them after training to help genuinely with that soreness. So I would say, while we don't stress particularly looking at your fats, just making sure you're meeting their daily requirements. Omega-3s are one fat in specifically that I do look to add to my post-training fueling. All right, so I am going to stop sharing while we do tips and tricks so that I can see you guys again. Here's where I think we say like the rubber meets the road. What does it actually look like to refuel breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What is that ideal meal? In the morning, I think, and we can dive into some of these, but I'd say the three best options, the three kind of portable / quick on the go. You've got overnight oats and or oatmeal, that like instant oatmeal that you cook yourself, and you can either do overnight oats with protein powder added in, or overnight oats with a protein shake on the side. That oatmeal, hot oats, it could be hot quinoa, it could be hot porridge, whatever it is, buckwheat. It's an easy, portable, refuelable option. And when combined with either protein powder, or if you like savory oats, you can put an egg on top, combined with protein, that gives you that great mix of carbohydrates and protein. It could be a breakfast burrito that you either make fresh, or that you, like some of my athletes do, will make 4 or 5 in the beginning of the week, put them in the freezer, and then you've got them either to thaw and heat in the microwave, or take to work with you and heat in the microwave there. And then I think the other one, especially beneficial for maybe plant-based athletes, is that post-workout smoothie, which I think is a great way to sneak in a lot of nutrients all at one time. You can get your fiber, you can get your flax, you can get your protein powder, you can get all of the other things that you might need to add, veggies. And with these different breakfasts, I think if you add in, if you're looking at like eggs and maybe some sardines or chicken sausage or turkey bacon, having that side salad, so you get those leafy greens in, or scrambling them in with your eggs, or adding them into your burrito. If you're doing savory oats, it's a great time. If you've never tried savory oats, it's tasty. Add a fried egg or 2 on the top, add some kimchi, add some vegetables, maybe leftover vegetables from the night before. It's a really tasty bowl. And then in the smoothie, obviously it's easy to sneak some greens in with that. So I'd say any variation of those kinds of 3, the hot bowl, the breakfast burrito and or tacos or breakfast scramble, and then the smoothie of some kind is a great. All 3 are easy, adaptable, personalizable. You can make them your own in the morning and fit. Look at, okay, how much carbs, protein do I need? And then building that meal around that. And does anyone have any breakfast type questions, breakfast that you like? I've done protein waffles, protein pancakes. They're easy. Yeah, I think, do you feel, and at the end, I guess what I'll ask is, do you feel like and you have good options? Have you utilized the recipes in the app? There are a ton in there. Obviously already color-coded that you can go to. Yogurt, that's another easy one. And then adding in fruit, adding in, granola crumbled on top. Excellent protein-rich option to take on the go.
Yeah, I'm plant-based. So for me, it's been about like I kind of had the general guidelines, I guess, just from other sports that I've been involved in. But for me, I guess it's more about, yeah, the timing of that meal, because like I'm getting up at say 3 a.m. to do some type of the training. So it's like it was really hard for me to get, like, thinking if I'm going to train at 3:30 to get up at 2:30 to have my snack prior to that. So it's kind of like, yeah, trying to work out how to balance that, but just using the example recipes of like the overnight oats and things like that in yeah, post training for breakfast has been useful for me, I think, because I would generally have like a protein shake and then drive to work. So it could be like 3 hours later that I'd be actually eating something. So just trying in that little window, if I add my protein shake in with the oats, it's made a bit of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great too, that you found a way, like you knew your body needed something
Mm.
and or more. And I would say to the point, like, yes, please do not wake up at 2:30 to get your pre
Yeah.
3:30 snack in. Like your hour of sleep is more important. But then if you're not getting that fuel before your swim, it's even more crucial that timing. The sooner you can eat, the better, because you went into that training session
Yeah. And
fasting.
I would also say like like you said before, the brain fog type thing, like I would get really hungry. Like my post running career was like as a footballer here in Australia. So it's like as much weight as you can maintain and hold for to be able to run with over 80 minutes and contact and things like that. So for me, it's been a whole change of timing of food and types of food and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely helped me. I'm not having that dip at say 10 or 11 in the morning that I was getting, even though I'm up at 3 o'clock, which is great.
That is, but man, 3:30, that's an early start time.
Yeah.
I used to think like I would brag about my 4:30 in the pools back in the day, or 4 in the pool, but yeah, 3:30's pushing even my
Yeah.
limit.
Three young kids and a full-time job will do that to you.
Oh my gosh. So have you ever done the um like make your smoothie the night before and then let it thaw kind of while you're in
Um,
session or in?
Nah, I haven't done that. I've literally the last couple of days, because I only joined on with you guys, I think last week. So
Oh,
yeah, the last couple of days I've literally just been doing like my pre-training snack has just been like 3 pieces of toast with like 2 bananas. So that gets me towards that 100 grams of carbohydrate and gives me a little bit of protein, probably not as much fat as is ideal, but then my oats are prepared for when I get home. And then I can just pick it up and go.
yeah, yeah. I think that's, yeah, it's oats are, I have that for breakfast.
Yeah, it's easy.
It is. And it's filling too. It's
Yeah.
absolutely filling. Yes, Amy.
Yeah, no, so I do a lot of meal prep because I'm like Scott, I work full time and I have kids to get off to school, and then I come home and I try to do like a morning training and then I'll do an evening. So I'm a lot of times 2 a days. But I find that it's easier for me if I just make like protein shakes ahead of time, and I can take that out the door. And in the Fuelin app, you're always supposed to get like your greens. So I'll put spinach or beets in my protein shake.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the run fast, eat slow. Like I love that beat me, you can't beat me smoothie, which is
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, so that's one of my favorites. But I'll make them like 3 days in advance. They keep okay. Over 3 days, your banana gets kind of slimy, but just you kind of have to play with it. And I use a lot of coconut water,
Okay.
like for my liquid base, instead of regular water. And then I'll have my whey protein shake, but I can take it out the door and I can get it down while I'm driving. So like that's a good gut training. And then you get to swim or you do your workout. So pretty much on race day, I'll always have like, that's my first thing I eat is the shake. And then I eat another breakfast.
Okay.
So, sometimes I do fasted, but then I also make granola in batches. And so I'll make a batch of granola on Sunday when I have more time. And then I put that in a big like plastic container, and that's kind of our cereal for the week. But my kids will eat it with milk. But then I also put it on, I get a lot of protein by like Greek yogurt. I know it's not for everybody, but yeah, I mean, some people think it tastes like sour cream, but it's got a lot of, if you get the low fat, you can keep under your fat macros, but I put the granola on top and fresh berries, no sweeteners at all. And I use very little sweetener in my granola, and it's great. It's a really like second breakfast. And then like you said with the burritos, but those are my two main things that I'll eat.
That's great. I think, and it's nice to hear too that they'll last. Like sometimes people are like, oh, will it really last and taste good if I meal prep it now? And I think it does. Like, and it's yeah, I found that they last. I found too, when you said your kids, it reminded me the little kids squeezable yogurts, like yogurt pops, if you will. Most of them are pretty high in sugar. So, which again, might be a good in between from like the pool to when you get home. But there are definitely some healthy ones too, that if you are in a car or carpool or picking something up, like they're great to have, because yogurt, I mean, I've eaten just about everything in the car in my lap, but it's easy to just like kids foods. I'm telling you, they're kids, they're handy for a reason. Like, there are, good protein options. And yes, so, okay, I wanted to see in the comments, I think there were some breakfast. So Martha, yes, my protein waffles that are homemade, I do add protein powder to them. Yep, Kodiak makes frozen ones. I've had the Trader Joe's ones. Those are great. Oh, thanks, Amy, for putting the recipe in for the pancakes. That's great. And then, yep. Oh, everyone wants the low sugar granola recipe.
Oh, you know what? It's the Run Fast, Eat Slow book again. So it's Shalane Flanagan and Elise Kopecki. You know, if you just Google it, they're so popular, but they have great smoothies and granola recipes. I think it's their second book has the honey cardamom one, and their first book has the molasses ginger. And I just rotate. Like 1 week I'll make one, and the next week I'll make the other. And I mean, molasses is great if you can get molasses in your body, because it's great for bone building and it has so many good vitamins in it. So anytime I can sneak molasses in, like in granola or like a muffin, they have superhero muffins too. I mean, that's a good thing.
I would say both of those books are worth the purchase. I've used them, and the recipes you can so easily like personalize and change too. Once you see the base, you're like, oh, I could make granola with this. I could add this. Like, so yeah, I would say those are great. And maybe I'll do in the Fuelin newsletter, because I have one that's, I mean, it's pretty much the exact same low sugar granola one. Maybe put in that protein power.
Yeah, I mean, the one uses honey and the other one uses molasses. There's no sugar at all.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Thanks, Troy. It was great having you on. Okay, let's move on to lunch. I think that's kind of the next one. If you don't have the luxury of working from home and you are packing your lunches or buying your lunches, I think the 3 options that I like to look at there is the salad, the sandwich, and then the leftovers. So the salad, I would say, is the easiest to get your greens and veggies, easiest to put in a Tupperware container, easiest to kind of personalize. So I always do my base with greens, maybe, cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, sliced bell pepper, whatever, a grain of some sort, and or some fruit, depending on what the carb requirement is. And then I have my protein, and I'll rotate. I'll make a big batch of grilled chicken breasts at the beginning of the week. Maybe I'll do like some oven roasted tofu. I do work from home, so I will do like canned tuna, canned sardines, put those on the top, maybe some fried eggs with some egg whites also. So yeah, the like salad combo is one of the options, pretty easy. The sandwich, I think, it's easy because if you have to order out, it's easy to like double the protein. So if I'm stuck at, somewhere like a Subway, for example, I get like the 6-inch, I ask them for double the chicken breast. And then I put on all the veggies, and then I ask for extra veggies on the side or an extra spinach. And then I just have them put a little of the oil and vinegar on there. And it's like a side salad with my sandwich. And where that is, like, the reason that I like that is because people can kind of make your own deconstructed sandwich. You can take it with you. You can pack it, like, or you can make it at home, I think. And the nice thing there is a sandwich is easy to get those carbohydrates in, adding an apple or a cup of berries or something like that as well. And then with the leftovers, I think for someone that lives alone like myself, it's easy. I always cook for 4, and then I know I have leftovers for lunches and dinners the next day. So I would say utilizing that, because you've already done the planning in the meal to kind of hit your macronutrient goals, is the easiest, most convenient way to, I would say, to nail the lunches. And then where dinners are concerned, this is where you guys really get to play around. And I think looking at, hopefully, you're utilizing the app and you can see, oh yeah, I have, it's a higher carbohydrate meal tonight because I have a big session in the morning. I still have 45 grams of fat, or, I have a limited fat window because maybe you did like salmon or something for lunch and eggs for breakfast. So there's probably not a lot of fat left in that window. And that's like, oh, it's going to have to be a leaner chicken or ground turkey. And then the carbohydrate component, I think for me specifically, I know how much a red, a yellow, and a green serving of either grains or potatoes or pasta is. And so I've done it enough now. And I think this is what makes it easy, and kind of, you can be a little bit, I don't want to say turn your mind off, but it's like, I don't have to measure. I can eyeball it now. If you get to that point where you're looking and yep, this is, a half a cup is the red serving of quinoa, and or this size, like a softball or baseball size, is the red serving of a sweet potato. I kind of I have a bowl, like a smaller cereal bowl, that it's like, oh yeah, that's the teeny tiny amount of pasta for a red meal or whatever. That makes it easy for me to then know, oh, I just double it for about double it for the moderate. And then I will add in double and or some other type of carbohydrate to get it to that green 100 carbohydrate meal. I think that's where a lot of athletes, like at the end of the day, will struggle. Either they haven't properly refueled during the day and they're starving and they're not paying attention, or they've had too much during the day and haven't really been utilizing the app. And so they're like, well, it's going to have to be a smaller meal, or I'm going to go over. And so that's why I think it's important to just have your post-fuel meals well planned, so that you're not missing stuff, especially if you have those night sessions. Like so many of my athletes, will go train after work, which means dinner's at like, if they work until 5, they get to the master swim group at 6, they're home by 7:30. If they have to cook a full dinner, it'll be 8:30 before they're eating. And that's where you want to have something planned ahead of time. That's where looking at your entire week and mapping it out on a Sunday is really beneficial, so that you're not stuck at 8:00 at night. If you've got kids that have practices and sporting events that you're going to be stuck at, that's when it's nice to have leftovers that you can take with you, so that you can eat, after your workout and not have to wait 2 hours or 3 hours until you get home and you're extra starving. So yeah, I think overall, when you're looking at meals and post-workout refueling, most important is that you refuel. The timing, you want to try to get it in, yes, within 2 hours if you have that short, rapid window where you need to be ready to work out again, sooner, like 30 to 60 minutes, higher glycemic index, faster absorbing carbohydrates, lower fiber, making sure there's carbohydrates and protein, considering omega-3s, and then building out that well-rounded plate, having go-to breakfast, lunches, and dinners so that you can take some of the guesswork out. All right, let's open it up. What questions? I'm sure there's some. I'm sure. Does it matter, men or women? No, we all have the same needs. Yes, there's some research out there that looks and talks about females need, especially the older we get, to like immediately refuel, and the research just isn't there yet. Like, get your meal in, I would say within an hour, and you're fine, unless you're going in fasted. And then yes, it actually does matter if you go into your training sessions fasted. The sooner after you stop working out, the better. That's when fat oxidation is increased, muscle glycogen replenishment is increased. Like, your body does good in that, 2 hours or so after training, even up to 4 hours, even up to 8 hours, depending on the kind of workout that you had. So sooner rather than later, but you shouldn't feel like you have, you're starting a stopwatch and you've got 20 minutes before you can, you've missed some great window of opportunity. I would argue that the window of opportunity is if you go multiple days under fueling. That's then when you'll be missing out on true recovery. The difference that we do know, I would say, is in age. So older athletes, men or women, the older we get, sarcopenia is real. We need more protein. That's where, and we've done different webinars on this, that 2.2 grams per kilogram of protein, especially making sure that you have leucine in that post-refueling source, protein source. That is very important, because it takes those of us that are older, over the age of 40, muscle breakdown is harder. It's harder on our body. Muscle replenishment is harder. So we do need to be mindful of making sure that we are getting enough protein in mixed with our carbohydrates for us older athletes. All right, let me see. The myth that we can't absorb. Oh, debunk the myth that we can't absorb more than 20 grams. No, okay. Yes, your body, depending on overall body size. So the question is it basically, can your body absorb? And I've heard this multiple times, like, oh, if you eat more than 20 grams, it just turns into fat. No, absolutely, positively not. Depending on, so the factors that influence protein absorption: age, type of activity, duration of activity, and then overall body size. So bigger, well-trained male athletes can, there's no problem in then hitting that 60-ish grams of protein in one serving. Females, I would say as a general group for us, 40 to 50 grams of protein, and excess food of any kind doesn't automatically get turned into fat. Like, a lot of people think like, oh my gosh, if I'm not utilizing, it's going straight to my thighs. And no, your body digests these nutrients in different ways at different times. Any kind of caloric overconsumption, that's how we add body weight. But your body has the ability, to answer Chelsea's question, your body absolutely has the ability to digest much more than 20 grams of protein at a single serving. I would say if you have kidney disease or different liver and or kidney problems, you should be very mindful of how much. You should do smaller protein servings throughout the day, just to help those organs in processing them. But otherwise, no, there's plenty of room to go above that 20 grams? Good question, especially for this discussion. Might write a blog post about that, actually. That's a good question. I get it all the time. And I think really like protein powder companies, you know, their business is to sell protein, but if we could only absorb 20 grams, none of them would be offering you like 40 grams in a serving, because you'd have to just buy more like protein powder and they would sell more. And, you know, but well, we'll just leave it at that. You can do more. Trying to think. I get a lot of times when I do with this in particular, meal timing and refueling, they'll ask if it's bad, like if you have evening workouts, if you should avoid carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, and only get them from vegetables in the evening. And that's definitely not necessary. If it's a low carbohydrate meal, yes, getting your carbs from vegetables is probably the best and most practical way to stay at that 30-ish grams of carbohydrates and still be full and satiated. But there's no like magic switch that at 8 p.m. all of a sudden your body stops digesting carbohydrates. So I think a lot of where that comes from is because in the evening we make poor decisions about which carbohydrates we're going to eat, potentially, and that's where some of that weight gain, or if we haven't fueled properly throughout the day, we're starving and we eat more than we would have otherwise. But you know, if you're under your daily caloric requirements, whether you have a piece of wheat toast or sourdough toast or wheat toast or whatever versus a plate of carrots, it's not necessarily magically going to become another like fat. Like you're not going to gain weight from that if you're still under your daily caloric requirements. All right. Well, any questions I didn't answer? Anything lingering? If you didn't have Scott or myself around, would you feel confident building your post-training meals? I'm going to go with yes if no one. Silence is okay. All right. Well, I think next week we're diving into whey versus plant protein, which is particularly interesting and fun. So hopefully you guys can tune in next week. And yeah, thanks for tonight. Everyone has a good evening meal. Karen, I hope you get a good meal after that after your bike session.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, Amy. Bye, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.